Welcome to the Mike and Alison After Hours podcast with your hosts, Mike Sheila and Alison Haas, talking business with real business owners in the Mid-Atlantic region. Today's episode is sponsored by Advantage Industries. When you need business technology, get Advantage Industries to protect and promote your business. To learn more, go to www.getadvantage.com and schedule your first meeting to see if you qualify for a free network scan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mike and Alison After Hours. I am your host, Mike Sheila, and with me is my always dedicated and often dynamic co-host, Alison Haas. Alison, how the heck are you today?
I'm great. I'm always anxiously awaiting my intro, Mike, so thank you.
You are very welcome. And folks, we have an extra special guest for you. I say that every week, but I feel like every time we bring somebody on the show, there is a special dynamic to them that makes them unique and fascinating and interesting to me, and hopefully to you, our listening and viewing audience. But before we get to Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, President of UMBC, we did some great giveaways on our last episode. Thank you again, honorable mention to Andrew Freeman and his company Shift for the book and the training. We have another fantastic giveaway coming for you. So in August, we are going to have a guest on the show by the name of Eric Williamson. Eric is a longtime friend of mine, and he is a consultant and a trainer that focuses on emotional intelligence to help businesses. And he wrote a fantastic book called How to Work with Jerks. So Eric is going to give away a copy of his book on his episode, How to Work with Jerks. We're going to pick some names
Eric,
out of the hat, and he will announce that live on his episode. So how do you win? You want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you want to subscribe to our podcast. And by the way, folks, we are lipping everywhere. We are on Podbean. We are on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, Audible, you name it. We are on that platform for your viewing and listening pleasure. But you got to subscribe and you got to drop a comment, because that's how we know who are you. But without further ado, this is part 2 in our higher education leadership series. We had Dr. Nito Cobain on a couple episodes ago. And today, my alma mater, go Retrievers, Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, President of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, a.k.a. UMBC. Dr. Hrabowski, pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you, my alumnus. Very proud of you and your wife as UMBC graduates.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, Dr. Hrabowski, we're going to break your segment into 2 pieces. Allison's going to take you through what we call who, what, where, when, why, how.
Okay.
And then once she has done that, then I'm going to talk to you about some leadership stuff. And folks, if you are not familiar with UMBC's story, I was a freshman there in 1991, and we were part of the Maryland school system at that point, but we are largely a commuter college, and that's sort of how people looked at us. And today, if you look at what UMBC has become today, one of the premier technology higher education schools in the country. And by the way, we win chess like every flipping year. So put that in your hat and smoke it. We are the chess champions. But we're going to get into all of that and how Dr. Hrabowski has led the transformation and making this into a premier higher education organization. So Alison, take it away.
Thank you, sir, and welcome to the show, Dr. Hrabowski. It's great to have you. And as we said, this first segment is really for what you want the audience to know about you personally, professionally. You can start and weave in between the two. So please, without further ado, what would you like the audience and us to know about you?
I want them to know that I bleed and breathe UMBC. It's all about UMBC. The fact is that I've been there now since 1987.
Wow.
And I've been president since 92. And so that is my career. I am, if people introduce me and they say, what do you want me to tell people? Tell them that I care about my students. Of all the things I can say, I care about my students. That's the message that we at UMBC care deeply about the students. That's it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We hear that loud and clear. So you are a native of Maryland. How did you get to UMBC and what has kept you there?
Okay, so I'll give you the short version of my story. Actually, I'm a native of Birmingham, Alabama. I was there through high school. I was a child leader in the civil rights movement. I'm old enough to have marched with Dr. King and spent time in jail. People always, you went to jail. I did as a little kid in civil rights and spent a week there. And that experience taught me that even children can be empowered to be leaders. So I've been in Maryland since 1977. And what is great about the story is that I've spent my career with public higher education in Maryland, and I've been at UMBC since 1986. I was actually in the inner city of Baltimore for the first 10 years at Coppin State and loved my students there also, moved to UMBC 10 years later, and here I am today.
Thank you. That's jail as a kid. How old were you?
I was 12. And I was a nerdy little kid. I was actually going to the 10th grade. I just about finished the 9th grade and had skipped a couple of grades. And I just wanted a better education. I wanted to go to a school where I didn't have to get hand-me-down books. And I wanted to be able to go into a store and not have to go through the back door and to drink out of the water fountain. Just basic civil rights. That was it.
Wow. That's empowering. I haven't met any other 12-year-olds in jail. I've met, well, we won't go into that part of my life, but I know a few other people that have spent some time there and more than a week. But again, we'll leave that on the outside. So what was UMBC when you arrived? Walk us through the last, 34 years, 33 years? Yes,
Mike said that he was right, that it was considered a commuter school. And it was young. When I went to UMBC, it was only 20 years old. In fact, when Mike started at UMBC, it was exactly 25 years old because it was founded in 1966. So if you think about it, Mike graduated in 95. That was 25 years when he started there at the university. So it was just that age. Why is that important? Higher education would say we have been one of the most transformed institutions in a very short period of time, because now we can tell you that most freshmen live on campus. Almost half of all full-time undergrads are on campus. Many others live in the area and just have transportation right there as buses go around in that area. That we have students from 100 countries. It would surprise you to know that over half of our students have at least one parent from another country. And so we talk about all kinds of international ties, that large numbers of students and faculty are traveling around the world pre-COVID every day, just because of the research that we do, that we are a research public university. At that time, we may have had $5 million in research per year of expenditures, and a lot of fine faculty members who were caring about those students. Now we've got approaching 90-some million in research. The budget at that time was maybe 125 million. Now it's about $500 million. We've had about $1 billion of construction since the early 90s, in fact. And so the place is transformed in many ways. And what kind of student are you trying to attract? We attract very high achieving students. Just make no mistake about that. The students in our special programs have turned down the Ivies in many cases. And 40% of our students go immediately to grad school. So in many ways, we look like a public Carnegie Mellon. People think of us as science and technology. That's because we do have about half the students in those areas. We produce a lot of doctors and scientists and engineers, but we have great students in the humanities, social sciences. And now we can boast of graduates who are amazing leaders around the country. From in our own state, the Speaker of the House, first woman speaker, first Black speaker, to the last Surgeon General. We are all excited right now because the woman who invented the Moderna vaccine that also has that technology in Pfizer is a UMBC graduate, Dr. Kizzmekia.
Oh, sweet.
You know, and the woman at NIH right now who is leading the national study on all the asymptomatic patients for COVID is a UMBC graduate, a young woman from Frederick, Maryland, who came to us, got her undergrad degree, went on to Hopkins for the PhD, postdoc at MIT, and she's a scientist there. The young woman who created the vaccine came to us from North Carolina, got her undergrad, went back and got a PhD, at Chapel Hill, and now she's at NIH, and she's on her way to Harvard. We have a number of our students who are now in the faculty from Harvard to Stanford to Duke to Columbia, you name those schools, to Columbia in the classics. So we know that we've got the products, and then we're the leading producer of people who go to work at the National Security Agency. Literally, we have over 1,100 graduates there in all kinds of disciplines, from cybersecurity, mathematics, but also in languages and other areas. And that's who we are today, a place known to be nerdy. We like being nerdy, Alison. I'm a nerd. I'm a mathematician, all right? And Mike said it. We are always in the top group of chess players. But this year, wait for it. This year, we beat Yale in the national championship in mock trial. That's for all those lawyers. I mean, huge deal. Nobody thought. No, I get excited, as you can see. Nobody thought that a middle-class place like UMBC could stand up to a Yale, a wonderful place with billions of dollars, and we won. We are number one in the country. We've been number one in cybersecurity, and everybody knows that we beat UVA several years ago in basketball, made sports history. In fact, the new book out called You Must Be Cinderella by Kevin Coward, that talks about the fact that first time in the history of basketball in our country that a number 16 seed beats a number 1 seed. And those students, those basketball players, were also great students. When the game was over and the reporter said, "What are you going to do now?" one of the young men said, "Got to go back to my room and study."
I love that message.
Touched my heart, right? And the other kid said, "We stand on the shoulders of our chess team." Now, where in America will you hear the basketball team giving some credit to the chess team? But that's who we are. And that's what we want people to know about us. And we also have large numbers of returning students who are in their 20s, 30s. I mean, the typical freshman, is a 17, 18-year-old, with some students who come in at younger ages, in fact. But most important, we do have a number of returning students because millions of Americans started college and never graduated. And so you've got students in their late 20s up to their late 40s. And this year, my oldest PhD that we awarded this year, we awarded PhDs to, 7 to 80 students. My oldest one was 71 years old.
Oh, I love it.
Years old. I mean, just an amazing story of a guy who had been a plumber at a young age, had his own company, did some other things, came back after 60, finished his PhD at 71 years old. And so that's the range of students we serve. And then finally, with a number of graduates who are working large numbers, we've got over 80-some thousand graduates. And most important, they're doing big things. So the head of applied physics lab at Hopkins, which is about half of the Johns Hopkins University, is a UMBC graduate, has his PhD in computer science from us as just another example of, and then a number of the faculty over at and staff at Hopkins are our graduates. And then great partnerships with the University of Maryland Medical System, where we have in the medical school downtown, where we have a number of our graduates. So that is UMBC, from medicine and science to a lot of lawyers and judges, and most important, people like Mike, who are proud to be UMBC graduates.
I feel left out, man. I feel like I missed the ride. What an awesome message. Seriously. And your passion, it's infectious. I mean, I can't help it. Literally, I feel left out right now.
Well, you can always come back. You can always come back and get another degree. I have no shame.
No shame. I thought about it, but I don't know how much longer. But you've excited me, so thank you. So before we turn it over to Mike in the leadership segment, where is UMBC? How do we find you? How do we find the school for people that want more information?
Sure. UMBC, if you go to umbc.edu, you'll find all the information. We are adjacent to the BWI airport, 600 acres. And when people come on campus, and we'll start again this summer, and before COVID, you would have seen this, it feels like the Plaza of Nations at the UN. Anybody who wants to see what it feels like to be around people from all over the world, literally from all over the world, come there and see how people interact with people different from themselves. And the life of the mind is the most important thing. The life of the mind and then the life of the heart, those ideas. Our Chesapeake Bay Retriever is named True Grit. His name is True Grit. And we say that UMBC is the house of grit. And the whole point is, it's not about somebody's smart or somebody's not smart. It's about how hard you work. For anybody, I want people to know that for children and for all of us, it's not about, oh yeah, he just was smart. No, No, it's about the hard work. It's about the resilience. It's about the grit. It's about you getting knocked down and you get back up. So come and visit the House of Grit.
I love that. Thank you so much, Mike. I think that's a perfect turnover.
That was absolutely phenomenal. And to set up the series of questions for you, Dr. Hrabowski, like many young people, I was brand new to UMBC. I was brand new to the state of Maryland. I actually grew up in New York. I went to a college in Philadelphia for a year, and I decided to change my major, and it wasn't a fit there anymore. So I started looking around, and a very good friend of mine who I befriended while I was in Philly said, "Hey, why don't you apply to UMBC?" It was an afterthought, and I was like, "Okay." So I applied. I got in. He and I were roommates. We lived right off of campus in Westland Gardens.
Wow.
And we joined a fraternity together because I didn't know anybody other than him. And I thought, well, how do I get to meet people? So, and to this day, many of those men are some of my dearest friends. And I bring this up because it's a nice segue into leadership and transformation for UMBC, because the number of my brothers that graduated from UMBC and now either A, own their own successful business, or are a leader in the technology space. So you may not know this, but the chief information officer of the U.S. House of Representatives is a retriever.
You know, and I've been hearing that, and I'm looking forward to knowing more about that person. And I'm assuming it's a guy. It's one of your frat brothers, is it?
It's one of my fraternity brothers. Yes, gentleman by the name of Alan Thompson.
Yes, I know the name. Yep. So,
that's just
me a note. When you talk to tell him to send me a note. Okay.
I will absolutely do that. Yes. So for me, I don't think any of us had an idea of where UMBC was headed when we were there in the moment, going to our classes, parking on the loop, hanging out after class at Chop Tank. None of us, because everyone I've talked to is like, have you been on campus lately? They've got a pool. Have you seen that? Where the building, the towers, and you guys didn't buy more land, you grew up, literally. You built into the sky. So from a leadership standpoint, what were the seeds for that, and how did you guide it?
Sure. My colleagues and I wrote a book that's doing really well right now. It's called The Empowered University, and the subtitle,
put it in the show notes.
Is shared governance, shared leadership, and culture change and academic success. And the 2 or 3 things I would say, when you were there, the students who were best prepared were graduating, but large numbers of students, as is the case in many universities, were not graduating. And so our first vision was to make sure many more people graduate, to make sure that the majority of students would come. And so the line that I always use with new students is look at the student to your left, look at the student to your right. Our goal is to make sure all 3 of you graduate. And before, still in many places, they will say, look at the student to your left, look at the student to your right, one of you will not graduate. That's a terrible thing to say to young people, because if I'm at all immature, and usually it's the but we say just the opposite. So being able to see students graduating and having the most positive experience for everybody, not just those of you who graduated, and our graduates do really well, but making sure we're looking at the student who may be shy or may not be as confident to get them to grade. That was the big news, all right? And our message to the legislature and to the governors over the years is, we're gonna make sure we take care of these students. We need you to help us take care of the students. So we're very fortunate. I go around the country with the book and working with presidents and boards, and they're always saying, what's the secret to success? First of all, we have great faculty and staff who care about the students. Number 2, the legislature and the governors have been people who care about people. So we've been able to get, as I said, close to $1 billion in construction just since late 80s, early 90s. And so you see the facilities there, but the most important news is, as our graduates have gone out and done well, the brand continues to build. When we won that UVA game, the New York Times said, who knows UMBC? And then it said, well, Harvard knows them, MIT knows them, Stanford knows them, because we've got graduates at all those places. It could not have been a better story. I'm reading about UMBC in Paris, in French. I mean, it's amazing. Everybody's talking about it. But when the lights were shining on us because of the basketball, people got to see the substance of the academics and to see just how far we had come.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. Fun little footnote for you. Another one of my very good friends who's UMBC alum was literally a rocket scientist at NASA.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a large numbers at NASA, and we've got hundreds of millions of dollars of grants over multi-years with NASA centers that we have in Earth systems technology and involving aerospace. You'd be surprised the numbers and from space to Earth, you'll see that we've got these large numbers of faculty and students working on issues involving everything from what you think about at NASA, but also from energy, the environment, right? Cybersecurity. We focus on the problems of humankind, the health disparities in our country, for example, and on everything you think about on the social science side. I mean, what are the ethical issues involved and the public policy? We're huge in public policy, one of the largest public policy programs in the country, with large numbers of our graduates working in the federal agencies and in the state agencies and in local agencies here.
Yeah, Dr. Hrabowski, I think one of the most fascinating things to me about UMBC is you mentioned students from all over the globe.
Yeah.
So global.
Yeah.
Yet when they graduate,
yeah,
they put their roots down here. The number of graduates that are in leadership roles in Baltimore proper, Maryland proper, the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, to me, that's impressive. What do you think attributes to that?
Sure. There's several things. You're right. The majority of those 80,000+ people do remain in this corridor up to New York, but especially in the corridor, in the Baltimore area, down in the DC area. And at the same, from people who have been superintendents of schools, the people who are, a lot of artists are in this area, are our graduates doing great stuff. A lot of people who own companies. You may not know this. We now have a research park that has over 120 companies, biotech and IT companies. And we are one of the epicenters of cybersecurity in the country. And large numbers of these companies have great relationships with NSA and other places. And it makes a big difference. And so I think a part of it is students begin working in agencies and in companies and internships while in college. They get to know people. And so they like working in Annapolis. They like working in DC. They like working in Baltimore City, Baltimore County government. The county executive of Baltimore County has his PhD from us. We're very proud of that. Johnny O. People could be calling him Dr. Johnny O because he is a PhD in public policy. He's a great example of our graduates. Vice President for Economic Development at Hopkins, Alicia Wilson, another one of our graduates, who went on to law school, who came out of one of the Baltimore City schools. Crystal Watkins came out of Delaney Valley High School. She's now faculty at Hopkins, MD, PhD. So you got people who work in universities in the area. Large numbers, you're going to have Dr. Schatzel, a great leader. A number of her computer science faculty got their PhDs from UMBC. We're very proud of them, very proud of them. So the idea is that people get connected to people and institutions in the area. And I don't think there's any area in the country more impressive as a place to live and work than the Baltimore area, than Maryland as a state.
Thank you.
Wow, I love that. So, Dr. Hrabowski, if you were to key in on one or two things from a leadership perspective that have helped you get to where UMBC is today compared to where it was when I graduated in '95, what are the one or two things that you've really hung your hat on and just taken the entire course of time?
Sure. Number one, you appreciate people who came before you, Dr. Alvin Kuhn and the faculty, who really laid a wonderful foundation. We could build on that. My predecessor, Michael Hooker. So you give that credit. I think great leaders can be confident, but they also appreciate humility. But for me, but by the grace of God, no way I could have thought as a little kid in Birmingham one day I'd have this opportunity to serve students and citizens of Maryland. Number two, the first line in the book, The Empowered University, is it's not about me, it's about us. So it's not just about the one person as a
That's
leader.
bingo moment.
It's about
Wow.
big groups of people, faculty and student leaders and staff leaders who have embraced UMBC as their own. You see, and as I always say, presidents and others come and go. Alumni are always there. It will always be your institution. You see, it will always be one of the great universities in our country, but in our state that we can brag on. And so understanding that leadership is about something that involves a lot of people. You can have courage to speak the truth as the one leader, but you also need the humility to say, but it's not about me. It's about all of us working together and our collective vision of what we want the institution to become. And let me just say to you, when I've spoken I teach up at Harvard. I teach new presidents and others at Harvard and have been for years. Harvard has done case study on UMBC. On the first 10 years I was there, this next 10 years. And the one thing they say, well, what's the significance of UMBC? It is that it's telling this country, you don't have to be rich to be the very best. We say in so many ways that, Harvard has $40 billion. So of course they're going to be best in the world. But we send the message to children and others without even knowing it, that if you're really good, you're the rich one. Well, no, you don't have to be rich to become the best at what you want to do. That's the American dream. That's the American story. I'm very proud that at least 30-some% of my students are first in their families to go to college. I'm very proud of that. I'm also proud that we've got a lot of kids whose parents are professors from the universities in this area and others, because they know we care so much. But the most important message is for each person to know I can be better than I thought I could be. And that is what we say at UMBC, that tomorrow can be better than today because we are empowered to make it so.
I love that. Having money doesn't make you successful. Well, being successful can definitely make you money.
Oh, yeah. And you can do two things. So don't miss my point. I love the fact that some of our graduates have gotten rich. We have a number of students at companies. Yeah, I'm always looking for checks from people. We're always raising money. But at the same time, I love the fact that many of our graduates are helping people, whether it's as a social worker or a teacher or doing legal work or just contributing energy and time and money. We want both. It's the genius of the and versus the tyranny of the or. That's from Jim Collins. It is, yes, we want people to have a good life and do for their families, and we want them to help other people. We take great pride in that.
Dr. Hrabowski, you just keyed in on something that I say on almost every episode. When it comes to being successful, it's never either or. It's almost always and both.
That's exactly right. It's never just something black and white. Everything happens in the gray. Remember that. Decisions are so hard in life. And it's never just, oh, that's right and that's wrong. No, it is about doing the right thing, yes, but being wise in your approach, taking your time to figure it out, whatever it is, and making sure you've got a moral foundation so that you can sleep at night. That's what it's about.
Powerful, powerful words. Thank you, Dr. Hrabowski. Alison, any parting thoughts for the doctor before we thank him for his 30 minutes this morning?
No, this was sensational. And I love the grit message, because I believe that too, right? Like, intelligence will certainly do you well. Talent does you well, but the combination and the willingness to get up and do it again, right? And to learn from your mistakes and your experiences and allowing them to create a more holistic human, right? And together we can. That whole idea of a community, is so powerful. And I personally hope that I never get to a place where I don't think I need other people, because then it's over, right?
That's true. We are defined by our relationships. So when you think about UMBC, think about us mastering the game of basketball and making history and beating UVA, and then mastering debate and intellectual arguments and beating Yale.
I love it.
From Virginia to Yale. Now that's the power of a UMBC.
I love that.
Dr. Hrabowski, thank you so much for your time and for joining Mike and Alison After Hours today. We so appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. I was delighted to be here and always glad to see our graduates doing so well, Mike. Thank you. And tell them to send me a note and send me a check.
I will be sure to reach out to Alan and tell them both. Yes. I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow.
Got it.
Allison, how impressive was that, huh?
You all are so impressive. Just thank you both so much. Really
Thank
enjoyed it,
you.
Mike. Enjoyed it. Listen, and if that smart daughter of yours finds after a year she's bored and she wants to be really excited, it's never too late. I have no shame. I have no shame.
Understood, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You all take care. Okay.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, wow. I didn't know about the marching with Dr. King. And as a 12-year-old man,
Right.
and I have to call him a 12-year-old man because he skipped 4 grades of school.
I know. What did he say? He was a freshman at 12. I was like, what?
He was in the 10th grade. He said, yeah, I was in 10th grade. Like, what?
Yeah. So, it's funny because we skip out so much of our story because we lived it, and we for me, I know I've been through so much as a human too, right? And it's but because I lived it, I don't think of it as anything. But and just like him, he lived that, so he probably doesn't really think of it as anything. But a 12-year-old man, right? That has shaped his ability to lead and be one of and shoulder, because he's been in the trenches, right? And I think that idea is you don't have to be in the trenches to like be compassionate and empathetic and end up a great leader, but I think it certainly helps, and it's again that take home message: you can be anything that you want to be, right? You just have to work hard and show up and keep going and keep trudging.
So for a moment, let's compare that to the conversation that we had with Dr. Cobain a few episodes ago. Dr. Cobain, an American immigrant, $50 in his pocket, barely spoke English, and put himself through college, started several successful businesses, wrote books, toured around the world. And then we have Dr. Hrabowski, a young Black man in the 60s, who said, I'm going to stand up for what's right. And okay, you're going to throw me in jail. I'm going to deal with the consequences because this is right.
Yeah.
And if you look at what has gone on in our world over the last 18 months, call it, maybe longer, trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong has been so challenging. And to hear a man clearly and definitively say, I believe in something, and I'm going to pursue it, you have to think that mentality drove UMBC to where they are today, right?
Yeah. And like, you can play basketball and be a stellar student, right? You can be both, and really both. Need to be both, right? Yeah, and both. I kind of am speechless for the first time in my life, right? And it's I don't want to put myself in a like I have nothing to offer because I'm not an immigrant, or I'm not a Black man that got raised in the 60s, obviously, right? I'm a white woman, and I've been very privileged my whole life, and I think certainly not without my own hardships, but to hear stories like that really gives so much perspective, and both, right? We have so much to learn from everyone if we just slow down long enough to tune in. Because we could easily look at them now with their title, Doctor, President of, and go, I have nothing in common with that person. But you just ask a few questions and you slow down and you go, I have everything in common with that person. If he can, I can, right? And just their passion for human development, right? Personal development is
you touched
awesome.
on that. He was on fire today.
Fire. I meant to, and I said I feel left out. Shit, what do I want to study? I got to go back to UMBC and UMBC. I had no idea. I think that and being a student of life, right? Not just educated with letters, but that openness and hunger for learning. I could just feel it through the screen.
Yeah, and I've made this comment actually when my daughter was trying to decide where to go to college, and I said, here's the thing: when you've graduated, nobody's going to care where you got your degree from. They're going to care that you have a degree relevant to the job that you're applying for.
Right.
Now, if it just so happens that the person that's interviewing you went to the same college as you, then you're a leg up. But beyond that, unless you went to a rival, they'll probably give you a hard time about going to a rival. But that's getting the degree. And my generation was the first explosion of that.
Mm.
You think about people that were just 5 years older than me that are now in their mid-50s. A lot of them weren't pushed to go to college. And what we're seeing out there now is sort of this backlash. And the schools have to adapt. They have to adjust.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hrabowski said that, we identified a problem. How about that?
Yep.
We identified a problem.
Yeah.
And we sought out to fix it.
Yeah.
So let's turn that around to business for a minute.
Mm.
Because I heard a great metaphor the other day. When you and I talk to a prospective client, when they look at our proposal, they think of it like hiring a cleaning company to clean their office.
Mm.
With that mentality of, well, you do these 3 things. I can find any company to do these 3 things. And that's not untrue. But if that is the perspective you're taking, you're selling your company short. And one thing that Advantage has devoted a lot of time to in the last few months is pushing back on prospective clients and saying, you know what, you're probably not right for us. GWC gets it, wants it, and capable of it. And we looked back on our successes and our failures for the beginning of this year. We said, you know what? We talked to too many people that just weren't GWC. They didn't get it. They don't want it. They're not capable of it. And it's not that there's something wrong with our product. It's that they're looking at this through the wrong lens. So I'm curious to, give me something. You had mentioned to me that for those of you new to the show, Alison is my BFF, even though we've never met in person, and we text each other frequently. And she said to me the other day, I really want to talk about the value of training.
Mm-hmm.
And that occurs on so many levels. So in my world, for training, we think of it from a cybersecurity perspective because, for the most part, our customers, their employees, are relatively intelligent and well-educated people. Not all the time, but the majority of them. But they still do stupid things. Now, I use the word stupid a bit casually because I don't think people would intentionally do a lot of these things.
Mm.
But hackers are very good at fooling people. And that's what makes it a stupid thing.
Yep.
So we do training.
Yep.
Because we want people, hey, be aware of this stupid thing because it's really easy to fall for it. And people go, why are you telling me that? It's obvious. Well, if it was obvious, we wouldn't have all the ransomware attacks and all those things that happen in our industry on a daily basis. And then we go back to the customer and say, well, hey, of your 20 employees, only 10 of them took the quiz. We need to talk to those other 10, find out why they didn't take it, because they're now your biggest security threat to your company.
Yep.
And then we go and say, okay, we got everybody, all 20 to take the test. 5 of them failed. So now those 5 people are your biggest security threat. So we need to talk to them. We need to help them understand what they did wrong and how to overcome that next time. So I love that you wanted to talk a little bit more about training, specifically as a report to HR, because HR is kind of a big deal, right?
Just a little. Just a little. That's like, but it's the elephant in the room, right? Especially to smaller organizations. So, and I love that we're speaking to educators. The fact that I wanted to talk about training had nothing to do with that. That just worked out brilliantly.
Happy coincidence.
Happy coincidence. So, first, when I think of my own career and the amount of training that I'm able to have and also mandated to take, my first is like, come on, right? Like, seriously, I have other things to do. But the reality is, when I take a step back and look at the whole picture, professionally, I am tasked with being the best I can be on any given day. And exactly what I said earlier to Freeman, I hope I never get to a place where I think I figured it out and I don't need other people. And so being trained consistently is only making me better and stretching me into a better version of myself. And so my manager is always getting better, and I see it with my own eyes. She's always changing her talk tracks. Every week is a little bit different in that she picks up new things in email and language. And so you think of life in a salesperson. And so for all you business owners, you are your best salesperson, right? Because you care the most about your company. It is your company. It is your vision. And although you may not wear the sales hat on a larger scale anymore, you are every day selling your company, because you are the business card for your company. You are the walking brand. It began with you, right? And so if you are not constantly trying to level up and be better, right, in your first impression, in how you carry yourself, in your language, I was a part of a big orientation yesterday, and how is your customer service, right? Are you taking things personally? Are you adept when things are hard and frustrated? Do you fall into the hole of being frustrated in the process? Or are you able to detach and make it less personal and say, hey, help me understand where you're coming from. Help me understand what you're feeling and experiencing right now. Let me help you be more at ease here. How can I do that? And if I wasn't constantly going through training from both an EQ and DISC perspective, we do a lot with DISC, the personality tool, but also like on the mechanics of the technology I use, of benefits, because we talk about benefits a lot, of compliance regulations, the different things. Right now, diversity, equity, and inclusion is huge, right? And it's very delicate. If I wasn't constantly being put through training, but also taking on the task of reading on my own, right? I just got finished virtual selling. Now I'm reading a book you sent me, F Your Brain. It's both. It's business and personal. And I'm constantly trying to evolve into a better woman, because it's very easy not to, right? And to think, oh, I got it. I've been doing this for a long time. It's fine. And the truth is it's not, right? Because new technology comes, new laws get passed, and we can get really stagnant, and other people will surpass us.
Yeah. Good stuff. I had a very interesting experience with my company, that my boss sent me an email that said, hey, Mike, I want you to watch these 2 sales videos, and we're going to talk about them during your one-on-one tomorrow. And I said, okay, great. And I watched them and I really liked them. And I saw a lot of really good things to incorporate into how I go about my business. And the following morning, during our daily Scrum call, I brought it up and I mentioned it to our customer account managers. I said, you're going to start seeing this language popping up in conversations, and know that this is where it's coming from and this is why we're doing it. And my manager, Tim, said to me, yeah, I'm really happy to hear you say that. I thought I was going to have to spend our entire time together today convincing you need to do this. And I said, fair enough. I said, I'm a pain in the neck to deal with. I can be very stubborn. I get that. I said, but I hope you can appreciate that I think of myself as a student first. And when it comes to sales, I always want to get better.
Yep.
And if there's something that will help me become a better salesperson, then I want to say and do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so he and I are working on, in fact, we have a meeting right after this that we're going to talk about some preparation for a meeting that we have this afternoon. And it's a first time meeting. It's somebody that's been in our interested portfolio for a while, on the tickler file.
Yeah.
And now they finally agreed to give us a meeting. And we are going to implement a different strategy. And the short version of it is that we are going to begin to interview prospective clients.
Mm.
And we're going to be very candid with them in the very first meeting and say, we might not want to work with you.
Mm.
And here's why. We believe very strongly in these things. And if you don't, that's okay. But that means you're not a candidate for us. And we need to take these things more seriously because it's going to help us get in front of the right clients. It's going to help us work with the right prospective clients. We chased our tails an awful lot in the first quarter of this year. And equally, we didn't put enough emphasis on what made us different. So we got looked at like the cleaning company.
Mm.
Instead of, we are literally the underpinnings of what makes your company work.
Yeah.
Don't think you need an IT company? Great. Let me ask you a question. How long would your business survive without computers or the internet?
Right.
A day? 2 days?
No, not even.
Yeah. Now, could you recover if you didn't have computers and internet for 2 or 3 days? You as an individual probably could, but what if your whole company didn't? What if you couldn't run payroll tomorrow because you didn't have access to your computer today?
Right.
Tomorrow's payday for a lot of people. That's probably kind of a big deal.
Yep.
So it's a different take. And I'm saying that to you, our listening audience, because whether you are the owner or you are a sales professional, there is this, I got someone to pay attention.
Yes.
I got to do everything I can to convince them why we're the right company. And it seems counterintuitive, but the answer is no. Actually, you want to find out as quickly as possible if they are a legitimate candidate or not. You almost want to scare them away. Oh, you're still around. You stuck around. Great. Let's have another meeting. I didn't scare you to death and you didn't run the other way screaming. And
yeah, we call that disqualifying, right? It is as important to disqualify as it is to qualify, because the amount of effort it takes once you have qualified someone. And when I say effort, I mean that sincerely. Like, this is neither of our sales are transactional, right? So to stay strategic and thorough and diligent in our meetings with the qualified prospect takes time. And if they're not qualified, and if it's not a right fit, you want to know that sooner for both of you, right? For both of you. And so if they don't value the underpinnings of your offering, and for me, if they don't value their people and see employees as their most valuable asset, and how HR is not just reactionary and tactical, but strategic in nature, and goes back to your bottom line, right? The more engaged and informed and trained your workforce is, the more money they're going to make you. Then sorry, there's not a lot to talk about. And that's hard, especially because sometimes we have bad months, we have slow weeks, and we get a meeting and it's like, oh my God, right? And it's like, hold on a second, right? So yeah, training, there's a lot of facets to it, for sure.
And I think particularly, I always want to keep this front and center in our conversations. I do not pretend that owning a business is easy.
No.
That it is simple, that the people that fuel our economy, let's put it in those words for just a moment. The gentleman that owns my company is fueling the economy.
Mm-hmm.
The board of directors at your company is fueling the economy.
Yep.
It is not an easy position to be in. And I'm going to go all Dr. Stephen Covey on y'all again for a minute. But Dr. Covey talks about how interdependent we are.
Mm-hmm.
And synergies. Dr. Hrabowski said that. Synergies. If you are a business owner and you're not craving that, I mean, really digging in and saying, I need this to get my business to the next level, then your business probably isn't going to survive, or it's certainly not going to grow. And again, that's one of the things that I love about the Advantage Industries is our president recognized I do some things exceptionally well. There's a lot of things that I don't do well. So I want to bring people into the company that do those things exceptionally well. And I can give them ideas. And if they push back on me, I know, well, hey, they know what they're doing. I got to trust them to do this. And if it doesn't work out, okay, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this topic, they're smarter than me. And I need to let them do it.
Yeah.
And that's, when I talk to prospective clients, that's a frustration for me, is I'll say things and I'll often get this, oh, well, that's not true. You're right. I'm just lying to you about everything to get you to sign this contract. I'm just making stuff up. That doesn't serve me. That doesn't serve the client. When I tell you something that is counter to your established beliefs, it's in your best interest to think for a second and go, wow, I had no idea. That's the healthy response. I had no idea. And, HR, human resources, it's such a multifaceted, it literally touches everyone in the company. Everyone. And when you have the right HR company, it impacts positively and also it could negatively your customers.
Yeah.
Everything, your brand, your identity. So, Alison, parting thoughts today. What a fantastic episode, right? Give me what you got in the last couple minutes here.
Yeah, no, that was really fun. And I really, I keep thinking I missed out, right? Because I don't give a whatever about where I went to school. And it's not because they didn't do a good job. I was in a very different place when I went to college, right?
Yeah. Folks, read The Addict in Aisle 7 and you'll get a little insight on that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. But I just, the idea of relationships matter. And, I think of who are the 5 people around me, right? And I think of you as one of my top 5, Mike. I really do.
Me too.
And the fact that you are constantly evolving only motivates me to do the same. And, we are who we surround ourselves with. And some of that we can't help, right? But it's like we can help who we attach to and who we want to emulate and who we want to, be led by or follow. And so I just think Mike and I don't know it all. I have moments where I think that I do. Just going to let you know that. But I also know that I don't. And, if what we say doesn't resonate, that's okay. But for me, I then like to do a little work on my own and ask myself, why doesn't that, right? Why am I not open to that? Which is what you just said, right? So just being constantly open to learning more and wanting more. And also there is a great book called Grit. I don't remember who,
copy of it.
Angela, somebody, sorry, Duckworth. I think that is it. Great book. Show notes maybe. But I selfishly get so much from these podcasts. and our interviews. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So for everyone, thank you for listening to this latest episode of Mike and Alison After Hours. Next time up, we have Dr. Kim Schatzel, the president of Towson University.
Awesome.
So excited about that one as well. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe on either Podbean or iTunes or wherever you like to listen to Mike and Alison After Hours. Be sure to drop a comment because you're absolutely going to want to win a copy of my good friend Eric Williamson's book, How to Work with Jerks. For Alison Haas, I am Mike Sheila. This is Mike and Alison After Hours. And remember, folks, people helping people. It's powerful stuff.
Have a great day.
Thank you for joining Mike and Alison After Hours. Tune in next time for another great business owner sharing valuable industry ideas. Want to be a guest on our show? Contact us at answers@getadvantage.com.